Well, if you haven't heard, the Trump administration has gone and done what previous administrations failed to do, make a threat and not follow through. According to multiple reports, President Trump has done exactly what he said he would do, that if the Palestinian Authority did not come back to the negotiating table, he would start cutting aid. In fact, $125 billion has been cut, and they say that could go as high as $180 billion. And frankly, this is what I believe that all administrations should have been doing all along. And that is, if we're going to pay the bills, they need to come and do exactly what we have asked them to do, or ask us to stop paying the bills. It's kind of like your kids telling you that they want to do exactly what they want to do, but they want you to pay they want you to pay the rent, they want you to pay for their clothes, their food, and they want you to give them spending money. Well, this is what the PA and really a lot of the world has been doing with the United States in past administrations. And, that's what we're beginning to do. Is we've cut off Pakistan, and I hope we do that with a number of other spoiled foreign aid recipients. Now, certainly, I realize that there are other things that we must consider, like foreign policy, intelligence reports, and other assets that we get from various countries that we can't simply just walk away from. But if we're receiving nothing in return, there's really no sense in continuing to support nothing. But here's an article coming out of the Jerusalem Post. It says, "Forging Ahead, Trump team confidence its peace plan appeals to Palestinians." And basically what the article is saying is that eventually the Palestinians are coming back to the table. Not only do they realize that we're paying the bills, but there really is never going to be a peace process without the United States. And I keep hearing from different individuals that the United States, or should I say President Trump, cannot be the Antichrist, and that there's several reasons why he can't be. Well, let me say a couple of things about that. Number one, I never said that President Trump was the Antichrist, but I will say this: the person who brings the peace with many and Israel, that will be the person that will be the Antichrist. Now, is that going to be President Trump? No, we don't know that. Although at this time it is hard to see how anyone else in the world could bring that peace process. The Bible is still clear in Daniel 9:25-27 that the peace that will come will be processed by someone coming out of the European Union or the revived Roman Empire. But there's also something else that individuals keep bringing up, and that is that Trump, or whoever the Antichrist is, he can't be someone who's married because he has to be homosexual. And of course, they get that reference from Daniel 11, verse 37, which states, "Neither shall he regard," and it's talking about the Antichrist, "the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, but he shall magnify himself above all." Well, unfortunately, that has been one of the most misinterpreted verses regarding the Antichrist. The truth of the matter is, it's talking about, when it says the desire of women, it's not talking about a homosexual or desire for another man. And I'm not going to go in deep into that, but if you want to, go down to the description section in this video, and there'll be a link where I will discuss it in full. But I will say this one thing, that when it says that, nor the desire of women, that's actually talking about the Messiah. Now, see, it doesn't make any sense if you say, "Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers or the desire of a woman," and then follow it with "nor regard any God." It's actually talking about the Messiah. It says, "Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the Messiah, nor regard any God." So that belief has really been born out of a gross misinterpretation that has been spread down through the decades, or I'm not sure how long that belief has been circulating the prophetic world. But I don't know who the Antichrist, and nobody else in this world knows either. In fact, we'll all get to know who he is once he has been revealed, after the rapture takes place. But getting back to the article, it is in this late hour, it is hard to see how the European Union is going to be brought to the forefront of this peace process without the United States playing a significant role. But you know what? That's the one mistake that people make in the world of Bible prophecy. They don't understand something, and therefore they go out and make outlandish statements. That I've seen that time and time again. So at this ministry, we will go and forge ahead with what we are looking at. And right now, the United States is in charge of the peace process. But we'll do that with the mind and with the certainty that the Bible does say that whoever the Antichrist is, he will rise up out of the revived Roman Empire at some future time. But reading from the article, it says, in the aftermath of Donald Trump's decision to declare Jerusalem as Israel's capital, as Palestinian leaders began dismissing his administration as a serious arbitrator of peace, top officials in the West Wing and nearby executive office building made a decision. They would proceed with a flurry of scheduled interagency meetings on their plan for Middle East peace as if nothing had changed. So basically, that's how the White House is proceeding this peace process, and they'll continue to do so as if nothing has changed. So the White House peace team labored for a year to build a delicate trust with the Palestinians, compromised virtually overnight by a series of dramatic decisions made by the president himself. Trump's Jerusalem move came on the heels of the U.S. threatening the Palestinian Authority with the closure of its Washington office. Now the temperamental commander-in-chief was tweeting threats of aid cuts unless Ramallah began showing him some respect. Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor, and Jason Greenblatt, his special representative for international negotiations, refused to allow a series of confrontations with the PA to affect their peace plan, a working document that has produced hundreds of pages of ideas, and that will, for the first time, include U.S.-led proposals addressing the thorniest issues in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Kushner and Greenblatt believe they can insulate their peace initiative from a diplomatic crisis with the PA, and that the plan, once presented, will appeal on its face to the Palestinians and the wider Arab world, effectively nullifying their angry response to the Jerusalem decision. Maybe on a personal level, they are angry with us, a senior White House official told the Jerusalem Post this week. They're trying to make it look like we've lost credibility, but a peace process and a credible conclusion to that process can't happen without the U.S., and they know that. And once the plan is revealed, it will speak for itself. So they're very confident that this squabble with the Palestinian Authority will be over in due time, because they believe this is more of a show of force than an actual walking away from the peace process. They may throw a temper tantrum or whatever the case may be. It may last a few weeks, but they believe in the long run that they have no other choice but to come back. And frankly, I have to agree with them. If President Trump stands his ground and cuts off aid, this is going to be a major blow to the Palestinian Authority and their ability to continue to operate. There's simply no one out there who's going to be able to make up close to $200 billion worth of aid. So eventually, I believe they're probably going to fold and they're going to have to come back to the table. And as I've stated all along, I believe that the modern Arab world, led by the Saudis, are going to insist that Mr. Abbas either take the deal or get out. And that especially if they come back to the table. Now, here's something else that the PA is also going to have to deal with come springtime. It says on top of that, they have endorsed, that's the United States, the Taylor Force Act, a bill nearly certain to pass the Senate by springtime that will threaten the PA with a dramatic aid cut if it fails to cease its program compensating the families of Palestinians convicted of murder and terrorism in Israel. We strongly support it, and we are waiting to see what comes out of Congress, a senior White House official confirmed over the weekend. And here's an answer to the question that I posed earlier. It says Trump has been threatening to cut or leverage U.S. foreign aid since the 1980s, not especially with the Palestinians, but with virtually every country in the world. Well, it's good for him. It said he has anxiously searched for an excuse to slash funding to international bodies, the UN chief among them. But most importantly, the president feels that Abbas's response to the Jerusalem announcement amounted to a personal attack against him as a leader. And when Trump feels as if he has been hit, he famously feels compelled to hit back. Well, as I said, good for him. Nothing has impacted the plan or the drafting of the plan, a second senior official said. But when people say things about us that aren't true, we will respond. Now, here's a part of it that's actually speaking about portions of the plan. It says the team believes its plan will surprise critics who expect it will be a free lunch for Israel, served up by 3 Orthodox Jews and a Coptic Christian. Kushner, Greenblatt, U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman, and outgoing Deputy National Security Advisor Dina Powell, one measure of its ferocity will be buy-in from Arab powers who responded mutedly to Trump's Jerusalem move, purportedly in anticipation of this lengthier, more substantive proposal. Assuming Arab capitals support the contents of the peace plan, which I frankly believe they will, the Trump administration hopes they will apply subtle pressure on the Palestinians to give it a fair shake. We want regional support, not regional pressure, but a nudge for them to give the plan an honest look would be welcome, the senior White House official said. Now, one of the Arab leaders responded and said, "What is the goal of this political process that President Trump will sponsor, other than to establish a regional alliance led by the U.S. with Israel's active participation to confront and contain the Iranian influence in the region?" Well, frankly, that is why I believe that they will get into this regional peace process, is because it is to confront Iran's influence, and they're going to need Israel and the United States in order to do that. So that's very likely how this peace with many will be established, is the promise that both the United States and Israel will come together with the Arab League in order to confront Iran. Now, certainly that could change if, in fact, the European Union does indeed take over this peace process. But I think the final goal of any peace process, whether it be from the European Union or the United States, is going to be used in order to confront Iran. The Palestinians would be wise to climb down from the limb they are out on, claiming they have given up on the United States as a mediator in the Middle East peace process. There is really no alternative, and time doesn't work in their favor, said Shapiro. But Trump and his team should focus on our broader strategic interest, the end of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in a negotiated two-state solution. Administration officials declined to provide a time frame for the release of their peace plan, which no longer includes the active consultation of Palestinian leadership. Israeli officials remain in close touch with the president and his senior aides. One official characterized bickering with the Palestinians that will invariably continue between now and then as static white noise. What ultimately matters is the content of the plan, the senior White House official said. And frankly, that is true. I mean, the bottom line is that they will continue to complain up until the plan is released, and then ultimately they're going to have to accept it. At least that's what my speculation is at this time. Now, in other news, Abbas has also asked the EU to help combat the United States and to recognize Palestine and help them to get the UN to recognize Palestine. And they've talked to France regarding that, but France has already told Mr. Abbas that they would not recognize Palestine as a state unless the EU as a whole did. So frankly, I don't see that taking place unless this U.S. plan is flatly rejected, not only by the Palestinian Authority, but also the wider Arab League. And that very well may be what happens, and that might shift it over to the European Union. But here's the last thing I want to talk about, brought to you from Israel National News. It says, Cabinet concerned about military developments in the north. They're talking about their northern border. And the article says the political establishment, this is talking about Israel's political establishment, is increasingly concerned over military developments on the northern border. The political security cabinet has met many times in recent weeks and discussed Iran's presence in Syria and Lebanon, and especially how Israel should deal with the changes taking place on the border with Syria. A recent ceasefire agreement between the U.S., Russia, and Jordan left Iranian-backed militias just 3 miles from the Israeli border. In addition, a recent report indicated that Iran is establishing a permanent military base just 8 miles south of Damascus. In recent weeks, Syrian army forces, backed by Iranian-backed militias, have pushed deeper into the last rebel-held enclave near the strategic border area with Israel and Lebanon. And of course, there's also been reports that as soon as this Syrian civil war is over, that many of the militias are going to converge with Iran and Syria and Hezbollah. And Iran also has a plan to recruit Shiite sympathizers, and they're going to raise an army and, of course, use their own military equipment and also forces to raise an army that could rival 100,000 or better. Now, certainly we don't know what that final number is going to be, but the Bible says that it's going to be like a storm coming down upon Israel when this Gog and Magog war does take place. And the Bible says when this war takes place that Russia, Turkey, Iran, and a number of northern African nations will take part in this battle. Now, certainly Israel is in contact and in talks with the U.S. administration, and they've stated that in this context, Netanyahu recently told the Sabin Forum in Washington, we will not allow that regime to entrench itself militarily in Syria as it seeks to do for the express purpose of eradicating our state. But as some of the reports have come in, it seems like that's exactly what's happening in Syria. And not only in Syria, but also in other neighboring nations. So we will continue to keep this development at the forefront because these are things that I believe are very much what the future holds for Bible prophecy. And if you're not looking at these two things, these are the two things that you really should keep your eye on. One, the development of the Gog and Magog war, which has been prophesied in Ezekiel 38. And it also talks about the nations that will be involved in that same chapter. And two, this peace with many that the Bible talks about in Daniel 9:25 through 27, that will ultimately be between the Antichrist, Israel, and the many. And this is what is believed to kick off the start of the tribulation period. But we know that before that takes place, the rapture must happen. And if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. Don't put it off. You need to come to the Lord as quickly as possible. And you Christians, you need a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. Go down to the description section on this video and click on the link, and it'll take you to the section where you can either get the free version or you can get the paperback version that you can hand to your lost loved one. And I hope and encourage you to do such so that your lost loved ones will have a copy once the rapture does take place. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.